With the hours ticking away to Election Day in the US, both candidates are pushing their closing messages. Donald Trump campaigned in 3 different battleground states on Sunday: Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. The Republican repeated promises to carry out more oil drilling, suggested his opponents were already committing election fraud, and made a comment about journalists being shot, which his team later sought to play down. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, set her focus on Michigan, and for her final rally of the day, she made a pitch to the state's significant Arab American community, pledging to do everything in her power to end the war in Gaza if elected president. Let's take a listen to the candidates.
I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there. And I have this piece of glass here. But all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind.
Here we are on the Sunday before the election, and I would ask, in particular, people who have not yet voted, to not fall for his tactic, which I think includes suggesting to people that if they vote, their vote won't matter. Suggesting to people that somehow the integrity of our voting system is not intact so that they don't vote.
Well, let's get some more analysis on the US presidential race now. For that, we can bring in Dr. Christopher Featherstone, who's an associate lecturer at the University of York's Department of Politics and International Relations. Thank you very much for speaking to France 24.
Thank you very much for having me.
You have a focus on US foreign policy, so let's start off with some of the big topics that divide the candidates in this area. First of all, the war in Gaza. The Biden administration's handling of the war means that many Democrats could maybe not vote for Trump or the Greens candidate. How significant a role is this issue playing in the vote?
Well, I think this is a knife-edge election, and actually we need to acknowledge this when we make any claim about foreign policy or any typical issue that might arise in a US election. And this time is no different. I would say that this is one of those issues where it will divide certain communities far more than it would than for other groups. So I would say that this election, the Arab American, the Muslim American vote is so important, given that it is such a knife-edge election, that the Democrat campaign will not want any vote splitting at all. So we can definitely see that this is an issue that would be very important. And actually, this is an issue that Harris has not really addressed all that competently previously. So actually, this is a quite a refreshing move from a Democrat for Democratic voters. I think that this would probably speak to a group who feel an issue has been underrepresented in the election campaign so far. So it's a big one. Whether it's too little, too late, I'm not sure, but it's certainly a very significant issue. When it comes to Trump has referred to telling Netanyahu to do whatever he needs to do, and therefore, he's unlikely to get much support from the Muslim American and the Arab American vote.
But Trump has also said that, along with the war in Ukraine, he would end the war in Gaza. What implications for Washington's relationship with Israel would that have?
Well, the Biden administration has had an incredibly strong relationship with Israel. Biden is famously known for being incredibly pro-Israel, whereas Trump has a strong relationship with the Israeli state and with Netanyahu, but in a much less deep way, a much less enduring way. So, there is a strong relationship there. Trump famously recognized Jerusalem as the capital, and therefore, we can see that there probably would be a strong relationship with Israel. Unfortunately, on the other side, we would have a huge amount of controversy surrounding a lot of his proposed solutions. His proposed solution to the war in Ukraine is to negotiate without Ukraine being involved. So, it might have a way of addressing the crisis, a way of trying to bring peace, but it would also exclude some key actors from involvement. So I think that it would have quite a detrimental impact on certain relationships and certain allies as well.
And do you think Trump's promise to end the war in Ukraine, he said in a matter of hours, in fact, do you think that's achievable? And on the Democratic side, in general, Harris had said that she would cut her own path away from the Biden administration. But on this issue of Ukraine and NATO, is it fairly predictable what she might pursue if she was elected?
I would say yes, it is relatively predictable what we might expect from Harris, but that is largely because we don't really know anything else. She hasn't really said what she would do, just that she would walk her own path. Well, that's fine, but we need to know what that might be. And Harris has been deliberately coy about referring to that, I would say. When it comes to Trump, I think the idea that he could end the war in Ukraine in hours is incredibly optimistic and at the same time incredibly unlikely. I think it's possible that we might see some bold comments from Trump in the first initial hours of becoming president. It's fairly typical for Trump to say some quite wild things. I would be shocked if it had any real impact on Putin and the war, unfortunately.
Right, and Donald Trump has floated plans for tariffs on Chinese imports, but will China-US relations remain strained no matter who's in the White House?
Yes, I would say so. It is an issue that is likely to endure for years to come. So the Biden administration has maintained a lot of the tariffs that were already in place when they entered office. And I don't see Trump as likely to move any of those down or remove any of them. I think when it comes to US-China relations, it is likely that China would have a more stable competition and more stable relationship with a Biden or a Harris administration than a Trump administration. But then you could also argue that Trump might be able to keep them destabilized and keep that relationship in a more nuanced manner, because China would have to be trying to predict a rather unpredictable man in terms of foreign policy.
All right, Dr. Christopher Featherstone, thank you very much for your analysis. We'll have to leave it there.
Very much.
We'll, of course, be bringing you the US election results as they come in with plenty of analysis. You can check out our special program from 6 p.m. GMT on France 24. That's 7 p.m. Paris time and 1 p.m. in Washington.